welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Israel's defense minister Israel Katz is warning that the military is stepping up its attacks against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. His statement comes a day after Lebanese officials reported 4 deaths in an Israeli strike. Katz has further stated that the Lebanese government must act to disarm the group. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has stated that Tehran is rebuilding its nuclear facilities with greater strength. While insisting the country is not seeking a nuclear weapon, Pezeshkian's remarks come during a visit to Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, where he has met with senior officials from the country's nuclear industry. Ukrainian drone attack has hit a tanker and an oil terminal in Russia's Black Sea port of Tuapse. Authorities have warned that the strike could disrupt exports of crude oil and refined products. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said that he is confident a new voluntary military service plan will be agreed upon in time to take effect by 2026, despite coalition disagreements as Germany aims to boost and recruit and reservists amid growing security concerns. 10 people were seriously injured in a series of stabbings on a London-bound train near Cambridge, prompting the arrest of 2 suspects, while Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called the incident deeply concerning as counter-terrorism police joined the investigation to determine the motive behind the attack. Hamas has denied U.S. accusations that it looted aid in Gaza, calling the claims false and unfounded. The terror group has described the allegations as part of the deliberate disinformation campaign aimed at undermining its credibility. U.S. President Donald Trump is set to host his Syrian counterpart Ahmed al-Sharaa at the White House on 10th November tentatively. This will be the first ever visit by Syrian head of state to Washington after decades of international isolation. Amid the storm over the Epstein scandal, a fresh report highlights that Andrew, who has been stripped off of his prince title, conducted a private Buckingham Palace tour while late Queen was in the residence. The reports say that his ex-wife received the sum of £1.4 million allegedly for the private tour. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has stated that during his visit to Hanoi that the United States is seeking stronger military cooperation with Vietnam. Speaking ahead of talks with Vietnam's Defense Minister Phan Van Giang, Hegseth has highlighted ongoing defense collaboration, including the delivery of 3 Coast Guard cutters and 3 T-6 trainer aircraft, part of a larger order of 12. Hegseth has further stated that Washington was committed to continuing these projects and expanding joint initiatives, emphasizing that the U.S. supports a strong and independent Vietnam. Let's listen in.
The Trump administration supports a strong and independent Vietnam as a mutually beneficial partner. So we want to expand our partnership together and work to advance our shared interests.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to Ukrainian Defense Minister, joins us live from Riga. Thank you very much, Glenn, for joining us again. Good to see
thanks.
you. Thank you. Glenn, can you tell us if these delivery of 3 Coast Guard cutters and 3 T-6 trainer aircraft and a larger part of 12, does it mean anything, does it signify anything particularly in terms of what's happening with South China Sea and a lot of things going on and the deeper U.S.-Vietnam cooperation on military?
To be blunt, it's almost an insult for a country like Vietnam that is so important in that region. Vietnam has been pressurized by China a lot recently, as has the Philippines for the South China Sea. And one would have thought that Hegseth would actually come bearing gifts that had some real value. I mean, we're talking about peanuts here. This is the sort of thing that America. It's like Smarties. It's the sort of thing you hand out to children. There is nothing substantial in this of any real military value at all, and surely he must understand that when he comes along, because this will not make the Vietnamese military sit up and say, hey, this is a great country that we're going to be working with. More to the point of, hey, you're just insulting us. So I find it a bit worrying, to be honest.
Glenn, do you think that as you mentioned, these are like peanuts compared to what actually the strategic value of Vietnam's current location, or Vietnam's location, geopolitical importance in the region? Do you think this move it could be taken as insult to Vietnam, and do you think that would push Vietnam closer to China in any way?
I'm not sure about the pushing closer to China. I mean, I don't think the Vietnamese would want that. I mean, they feel threatened by China. I know this, but I'm absolutely sure that when America comes calling like this, that you would think that there will be something substantial in the offer. I mean, I might add that having seen the last trade agreement between Vietnam and America, it was very, very one-sided for America. America will bring stuff and you will take it, sort of thing. And Vietnam has actually ordered 50 Boeing aircraft, or supposedly ordering 50 Boeing aircraft. Well, that's a huge deal for US, and they don't seem to understand what they're doing in international relations terms.
Do you think Vietnam just doesn't understand over here, or that US is undermining their importance, or do you think just Vietnam does not have means or people to negotiate on a rightly basis for them?
That is a very good question. I mean, it's quite clear that at the moment that it's the US side that is weak. It may be that Vietnam doesn't have the as a nation yet, doesn't have the self-confidence. But they've stood up to China a few times recently, which makes me think that they're not about to drift into the Chinese sphere of influence. So it's a really strange period, but I cannot see that the Vietnamese military are going to be thinking in great terms about US at the moment.
And how could Vietnam balance closer ties with Washington while maintaining its policy of non-alignment and cooperation with other major powers?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a very good line, a very good question. Is non-alignment even a possibility when China is actually sort of imposing itself upon your real estate, upon your space? I'm not sure it is. So I think that the Vietnam itself needs to actually think quite hard about how it deals with others. I mean, it needs a stronger relationship with some of the other Asian countries, almost like an Asian NATO, because China is only going to keep pushing out the boundaries, and Vietnam, as a small country as it is not going to be able to face China alone. So the whole of the region needs to rethink its international relations, and I don't see that's being encouraged by the current US attitudes or administration.
With that, I would like to thank Glenn for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on. Ukrainian forces have launched a major drone strike on a Russian oil terminal in the Black Sea port of Tuapse, causing significant damage to key energy infrastructure. Ukraine's SBU security service has confirmed that 5 drones hit the Rosneft-owned facility, striking an oil tanker, loading equipment, and nearby port buildings. Russian authorities said 2 foreign civilian vessels were also damaged in this attack, sparking a fire that was later extinguished. No casualties have been reported so far, but officials confirmed that several buildings and terminal infrastructure sustained damage. The Tuapse terminal is one of Russia's largest oil facilities in the Black Sea, processing around 240,000 barrels of oil per day. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to Ukrainian Defense Minister, joins us live from Riga. Thank you very much, Glenn, for staying with us. Thank you. Glenn, can you tell us a little bit more about this Tuapse terminal and the importance for Russia of this seaport?
I think you almost said everything that's really important. It's the biggest one down on that part of the world, and of course, where it is on the Black Sea, it means that it's closer to being able to take its fuel from the port straight across the Black Sea and out through Turkey, and that's what they've been doing. So it's a very, very tasty, juicy target for Ukraine to try and stop that, because anything they can do to stop oil being exported through Black Sea ports down to the Mediterranean means that Russia would then have to export oil to other places south, like Africa or India. It would have to export oil from the Arctic, and that's going to take a lot longer. So the Black Sea is really important for Russia. The Black Sea ports are really important for Russia, and Ukraine will do anything now it can to close them, or at least to degrade them to the point where Russia is not getting any profit from them.
Do you think this Tuapse oil terminal attack was planned from earlier, or do you think this comes after yesterday's strikes of Russia on Pokrovsk, the logistic route, the important Pokrovsk region? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, Pokrovsk. Yeah, now I think you'll find that the SBU and the Navy that have the task for that southern area will certainly have every single Russian port nicely labelled and listed and identified as targets, and will have had that for 3 years at least, if not longer. The question is whether you've actually got the weapons to do the damage, because if you're going to use drones or naval drones or whatever, you've got to have those first, and you've got to be prepared to lose them on a major target. Major targets, Russian targets, are well defended, so it's a gamble for them, and the Ukrainians will go for the softer targets first where they can, when they know they can get damage. If they're going for a major port, then everything has got to be right. So I don't think it's any coincidence. I just think that this was the right time. They had the right equipment and they had the ability to do it. So they went for it.
And Glenn, also yesterday we saw Ukraine claimed that this is the Pokrovsk attack is a nuclear terrorism. Do you think that words or these statements coming in from Europe would lead to more support from the coalition of the Willings and US in particular?
No, I don't. I think there'll be lots of talk, but to be blunt, the coalition of the Willing and US have basically given all that they're going to give for the moment. I mean, maybe possible to get a bit more from US, but I think that most of the European countries are maxed out to current plans for what they're going to give, and if they're going to give any more, it's going to take something really serious before they are going to say, okay, we've got to change our own domestic budgets to find more money for Ukraine. I just don't see that happening at the moment. So I think we'll just continue as we're continuing, And there'll be some bad targets and there'll be some bad actions and lots more deaths in major cities. But I don't see it actually changing the supply support from Europe upwards at any time soon.
And what is your analysis of a current war, or who do you think is on winning or on the front lines? What is your analysis?
Okay, I think you've got to look at the totality to see what is going on. I mean, in totality, there is no question that Ukraine is winning. Because Russia has been fighting this war for a long time, is using huge, vast amounts of national treasure and basically creeping forward slowly. On the front line, yes, they are moving forward, and there are some worrying conditions on the front line that certainly will make the Ukrainian government unhappy. But overall, with the attacks on the fuel, with the attacks on the destruction of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea, and now attacking ports, I think that Russia is really actually on the back foot overall. But whether what Ukraine is doing is enough to actually to force them to stop, I don't think so yet. I think we've still got a long way to go in this war.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Glenn Grant for always joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Middle East. Gaza's Health Ministry has issued a statement saying that the death toll in Gaza has climbed up to 226 people in the recent Israeli strikes that have been conducted in the period of ceasefire. Israel has continuously struck Gaza over the last 4 days. During the strikes, almost 600 people have sustained injuries. This comes as Israel returned to the Gaza Strip the bodies of another 13 Palestinians. Overall, within the framework of the ceasefire agreement, 225 bodies have been returned to the Palestinian sides with the assistance of the International Committee of the Red Cross so far. Meanwhile, the mediators are pondering on the second phase of the Gaza peace deal, which includes talks on the deployment of an international stabilization force and the disarmament of Hamas. However, both Israel and Gaza continue to exchange slain bodies. The peace deal still holds fragile, but despite the fragility of this situation. Now we welcome Peter Baum. He's a foreign editor at Weekly Blitz, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Peter, for joining us again. Good to see you. Peter, what do you think is happening with the phase 1 of ceasefire? And again, the same question of, do you think the talks for the phase 2 should continue?
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being on here again.
Thank you.
Yes, the story that you referred to about the 226 deaths in Gaza came out on Friday through the Hamas propaganda machine. The Gaza Health Ministry was fed to Al Jazeera, and then that was fed to Al Jazeera's chosen Israeli outlet, the very anti-Netanyahu left-wing paper Haaretz. And it's actually become a non-story, because most analysts now who are looking at the output from the Gaza Health Ministry are taking these figures not very seriously, and in the event of no other news, they may quote the Gaza Health Ministry. One of my colleagues working for a French newspaper called Al Jazeera and said, did that number include the number of Palestinians executed by Hamas? And the phone was promptly slammed down on him. So the ceasefire, despite the number of deaths that the Gaza Health Ministry quoted, does seem to be holding, despite the various sporadic upticks and we saw quite a serious one at the end of last week. So it looks as if the ceasefire, albeit with some rocks along the way, let's say, is by and large holding up, and hopefully it will continue. Though I must say this, Hamas recognises that in order to retain some kind of credibility and control, either militarily or politically, Hamas needs to come up with a spectacular act of violence in order to keep the appearance of being a relevant player in the peace process. Most, if not all, of her former backers are trying to isolate her. Iran is completely out of the picture now, and Turkey and Qatar and Egypt seem to be going the Trump route in saying, look, there's going to be no room for Hamas in Gaza's reconstruction whilst Hamas retains a military presence. So I know it's a long way of answering your question, but in Gaza, it sometimes takes a lot of explanation and thinking about an analysis.
Yes.
But I do think the ceasefire is holding up, albeit Hamas will try to disrupt it.
And thank you, Peter, for sharing that. Peter, do you know any reports of how many people have been killed by Hamas? As we know, and also you mentioned that these numbers did not include people who were killed by Hamas. And also, as talks on the deployment of international stabilization force continues, who do you think will be participating in this so far, and what will their motive be?
Okay, it's very unclear how many Palestinians have been killed by Hamas. Very unclear. We've seen pictures, video clips I should say, of at least 30 executions in the last few days, but prior to that there were a number of other executions as people tried to protest excuse me, against Hamas. Hamas are a totalitarian, theocratic regime that rules with an iron fist, and the Palestinians are very scared to offend them. The only Palestinians that do seem to be fighting against them seem to be the family clans, and those are being supported, obviously, by Israel and possibly the United States. But in terms of how many Palestinians have actually been killed by Hamas, I'd put it to you this way. I believe that thousands of Palestinians have been killed as a result of the Hamas actions by using those poor people as human shields. Now, to answer your second question about the peacekeeping force, I tell you who won't be in it as far as Israel is concerned. Turkey, a major player in the peace process, it would be a red line for Israel to have Turkish forces in Gaza. But I do think that Egypt would have a role to play in here, and maybe some force of the combined Arab Gulf states. So perhaps the Emiratis, Qatar even could play a role, maybe even Oman. But as far as the United Nations are concerned, there are certain countries, again, that Israel will have no truck with because of a previous experience. She wouldn't want, for example, the useless Irish troops who formed the UNIFIL brigade. Because of the poor relationship with Spain and Norway, Israel probably wouldn't want Spanish or Norwegian troops, but she would be very trustworthy of troops from the United States and some countries in South America, such as Panama, Argentina, Paraguay, for example. So the makeup has yet to be determined, but it's clear from the Israeli side the countries that she would not want to fill that gap as being a peacekeeping force. And I think to answer your third question, if you like, what would be the role of the peacekeepers? It would be simply that. It would be certainly to help in the reconstruction, but to keep the militant factions away from the Israeli border, as UNIFIL tried but so spectacularly failed to do when UNIFIL was on the Lebanese-Israeli border.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for remembering all my 3 questions and answering them in order and giving us that insight. Thank you very much. That was Peter Baum. He's a foreign editor at Weekly Blitz, joined us live from London. Now we stay in the region. Prince Andrew is under fire for allegedly using his royal status for private business deals. According to reports, in 2019, he arranged a private tour of Buckingham Palace for American businessmen involved in a failed cryptocurrency scheme while the late Queen was in residence. The men Jay Bloom and Michael Evers ran Pegasus Group Holdings, which paid Andrew's ex-wife Sarah Ferguson more than £200,000 with contracts promising bonuses worth over $1 million. The company claimed it would mine Bitcoin using solar power in Arizona, but the project collapsed, costing investors millions. The revelations have reignited scrutiny of Andrew's business connections and prompted Buckingham Palace to begin formal steps to strip him off of his royal titles and his Windsor residence. Now we move on to Germany. Local authorities have reported that 5 German climbers have been killed after being caught in an avalanche in the Italian Alps. The group has set out to climb Cima Vertana, a peak in the Ortlier mountain range near the village of Solda, when the avalanche struck as they approached the summit. The cascade of snow and ice have swept away members of 2 separate rope teams. Rescuers recovered the bodies of 2 men and a woman, while a father and his 17-year-old daughter were found. 2 other climbers managed to escape unharmed. The Ortler Massif, located near the Swiss border, is a popular destination for experienced mountaineers, but is also prone to avalanches during unstable weather conditions. Now we move on to Americas. Thousands of people filled the streets of Buenos Aires for Argentina's 34th annual LGBTQIA+ Pride March, celebrating diversity and equality while protesting the policies of President Javier Milei's government. The colorful parade moved from Plaza de Mayo to the National Congress, turning the capital into a sea of rainbow flags, music, and solidarity. Marches carried signs reading "There's no pride without justice" and "Against hate and violence, more pride and unity," expressing concerns over what they see as growing intolerance and government inaction on LGBTQIA+ rights. Let's listen into what some pride goers have said.
Creo que es fundamental el tema de estar hoy en las calles para luchar, para seguir pidiendo y para, sobre todas las cosas, demostrarle a esta extrema derecha que la gente, que el pueblo, que es de abajo para arriba y que no nos van a volver a meter en el armario y vamos a seguir luchando por nuestros derechos.
Porque este gobierno del presidente Javier Milei ha hecho un recorte fundamental en las políticas públicas, ha eliminado todo lo que son intervenciones y políticas sociales para las personas negras, migrantes, de la comunidad LGBT, ha cerrado el Ministerio de la...
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.